What if I told you that your entire life of effort, every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, was a waste of time? That there's a technique, hidden for millennia, that allows you to achieve absolutely everything you desire without any effort. This isn't a metaphor, it's an instruction manual for reality, left by one of the most ancient and powerful minds that ever existed, Thoth the Atlantean. The promise is absurd: achieve everything without doing anything. And that's why this technique was considered forbidden, because it breaks the number one rule of the system that keeps you trapped, the belief that you need to fight. In the next few minutes, I won't give you productivity tips. I'll give you the code, the exact key that Thoth recorded to manipulate reality in your favor, using the flow of the universe instead of brute force. But I need to warn you, what you're about to learn here goes against everything you've been taught. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're ready to stop pushing the rock and start moving the mountain, stay with me, because this may be your last chance to wake up. This key takes us away from the noise of our modern world to the misty mountains of ancient China, more than 2 millennia ago. There, an old librarian, a silent archivist named Lao-Tzu, observed the world differently. He didn't look at great armies or powerful emperors. He looked at the water, the wind, the bamboo. He saw the patterns that everyone else, too busy fighting their own battles, completely ignored. And in his observations, he discovered something so radical, so contrary to everything society believed, that it was considered dangerous. His proposal was almost heresy for a culture of power and conquest. The secret to achieving everything you want is not in doing more, but in doing less. The key to mastery lies not in strength, but in gentleness. Victory comes not from resistance, but from flow. He gave this concept a name that would echo through the centuries, though few understood its true power: Wu Wei. Literally, effortless action or non-action. To the modern mind, conditioned to fight for every inch, this sounds absurd, a fantasy, a recipe for failure. But Lao Tzu's idea perfectly echoes an even more ancient wisdom, Hermetic wisdom. Wu Wei is not about doing nothing. It is about action perfectly aligned with the universal current of energy. Thoth, the thrice great, described this as mastery over one's own vibration. The principle of vibration, one of the 7 pillars of Hermeticism, states that nothing stands still, everything moves, everything vibrates, every thought, every emotion, every object in the universe possesses a unique vibrational frequency. The universe is not a collection of dead things. It is an infinite symphony of vibrations. The raw effort, the struggle, the force we use every day is an attempt to impose a dissonant vibration on reality. It's like trying to play a wrong note with all your might in the middle of a well-tuned orchestra. The result is only noise, friction, and resistance. Effortless action, Wu Wei, is the opposite. It's the subtle art of attuning your own vibration, your intention, to the vibration of the result you wish to manifest. It's aligning yourself with the music of the universe instead of fighting against it. When you're in tune, the result flows to you through the path of least resistance. It's the fundamental difference between shouting into a muted microphone and whispering at the correct frequency. Shouting expends all your energy and produces no results. Whispering at the right frequency can move mountains. The secret lies not in the intensity of the effort, but in the precision of the tuning. It's about becoming a conductor of your own energy, learning to play in harmony with the cosmic symphony, rather than being a rebellious musician who insists on playing his own tune out of tune, generating only chaos and frustration. Tuning into this frequency, however, seems abstract, ethereal, and nearly impossible to apply in real life. And, indeed, this is where most people go astray. They hear effortless action and translate it into something completely different, something that imprisons them even further. Many who try to apply this secret end up falling into a trap of self-deception, confusing attunement with the silence of inertia. Before revealing how to find the right frequency, we need to expose the cheap imitation that keeps most people trapped in a counterfeit version of power. And it is precisely here that the true challenge arises, recognizing that Wu Wei is not an invitation to passivity, but rather to a refined perception of life. It is a state of presence so profound that it allows us to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. It is the art of aligning ourselves with the right time, of understanding that there is a secret rhythm governing all things. Those who understand this stop straining against the current and learn to be carried by the invisible flow that moves the universe, achieving more with less effort. This is where we need to be brutally honest, because the skepticism you feel now is justified. The idea of non-action has been hijacked and distorted, transformed into a sophisticated excuse for inaction. Many have heard of Wu Wei and interpreted it as a license for laziness, a spiritual justification for procrastinating, for avoiding difficult conversations, for not taking responsibility. They sit in the lotus position, waiting for the universe to magically deposit their dream career, the perfect relationship, and a fat bank account in their laps. This is not Wu Wei. This is a childish fantasy. This New Age interpretation is not only incorrect, but dangerous. It takes one of the most dynamic and effective principles of power ever discovered and transforms it into a philosophy of powerlessness disguised as spirituality. It's the mindset that says, if it's meant to be, it will be. I don't need to do anything. This passivity isn't flow, it's stagnation. It's the refusal to participate in the dance of life, waiting for the music to come to you. The universe doesn't reward inaction. It responds to clear intention and aligned action. Believing that inaction means doing nothing is the first and most serious error. In alchemy, the journey of transformation begins with the Negredo phase, the dark night of the soul. It is a process of dissolution, of breaking down old structures, of confronting one's own shadows. It is an active, fertile void, where the old dies so that the new can be born. False passivity, on the other hand, is what alchemists would call false putrefaction. It is a swamp of stagnation. Nothing is dissolved, nothing is confronted, and therefore nothing new can grow. It is the dangerous comfort of avoiding the discomfort necessary for true transformation. Hermeticism gives us the key to distinguishing the two. The first Hermetic principle is that of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Everything that exists is a creation of the universal mind. Your reality is a reflection of your mental state. Lazy passivity is a mental state of abdication, of surrendering your creative power. You are essentially saying to the universe, I give up, do as you please. And the universe, respecting your free will, leaves you stagnant. True Wu Wei, however, is a mental state of focused attention and dynamic receptivity. It's the alert stillness of a predator waiting for the exact moment to act. There's no laziness, there's readiness. There's no surrender, there's deep listening. It's a state of consciousness that's completely present, observing the currents of energy, sensing the rhythm of the universe, ready to act with surgical precision the exact moment the universal mind presents the opening. It's the difference between a soldier sleeping at his post and a chess master silently watching the board, waiting for the perfect move that will change the entire game. Now that we've clearly distinguished the swamp of stagnation from the vast ocean of potential, we're ready for the first practical key. The answer lies not in a philosophical concept, but in a simple, powerful image that reveals the fundamental power dynamics of the universe and how you can begin to use them to your advantage rather than against it. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a vast, powerful ocean. This ocean is life, with its unpredictable currents, its gigantic waves, and its deceptive calm. Now, watch two people enter the water. The first is the desperate swimmer. He represents the modern mindset. He has a clear goal, to reach the other side, and he tries to do it through brute force. He throws himself into the water and begins to fight against each wave, to flail furiously against each current. His breath is labored, his muscles burn. He is in a constant war against the ocean. Does he move forward? Yes, a few inches at a time. But at what cost? All his energy is spent on resistance, on friction. He sees the ocean as an enemy to be conquered, an obstacle to be overcome by sheer willpower. He's exhausted, frustrated, and most of the time, just trying not to drown. This is the image of our lives when we operate from effort. We fight problems, resist change, force situations. We live in a state of perpetual battle against life itself, and we wonder why we're so tired. Now, look at the second person. He's the master surfer. He doesn't enter the water to fight. He enters to dance. He doesn't see the ocean as an enemy, but as a partner. He spends time simply observing, feeling the rhythm of the waves, studying the invisible currents. He doesn't waste his energy fighting the force of the sea. Instead, he positions himself, patiently waits for the right wave, and when it arrives, with a precise and economical movement, he aligns himself with it. And then, magic happens. The same force that exhausted the swimmer now propels him forward with incredible speed and grace. This metaphor perfectly visualizes the principle of polarity as taught in Hermeticism. The swimmer and the surfer are two poles of the same thing, the application of force. They are in the same ocean, dealing with the same energy. But the swimmer operates at the negative pole of resistance, of force against force, of friction. The surfer operates at the positive pole of mastery, of non-resistance, of channeling. The Kabbalion teaches that opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. The energy is the same. What changes is how it is used. The Hermetic master, the practitioner of Wu Wei, learns the art of mental transmutation. He learns the ability to consciously shift his polarity. He realizes when he is acting like the desperate swimmer, wasting his life force in futile struggles, and consciously chooses to become the surfer. He stops fighting the current and starts chasing the wave. He doesn't become weaker by doing so. He becomes infinitely more powerful, because he stops using only his limited strength and begins to channel the limitless power of the ocean itself. The surfer doesn't have more muscular strength than the swimmer. He has a different wisdom. He has a keen perception. He understands the nature of the ocean. He understands the secret of the element that Thoth the Atlantean called the soul of the world. An element that appears weak on the surface but holds the key to dissolving any and all resistance that stands in its way. Let's delve deeper into the logic behind Wu Wei, and to do so, we need to look to its greatest teacher, water. On the surface, water appears to be the weakest and most defenseless substance in nature. It has no shape of its own, adapting instantly to any container. A child can divide it with their hands. A boat cuts through it effortlessly. It seems to offer no resistance whatsoever. In a world that values hardness, rigidity, and strength, water would be considered the embodiment of weakness. But this is a dangerous illusion. This apparent weakness hides the planet's most formidable and persistent power. It was water that drop by drop, over millennia, carved the Grand Canyon, transforming solid rock into one of Earth's most magnificent spectacles. It is water that shapes continents, softens the tallest mountains, and transforms sharp rocks into smooth pebbles. How can something so gentle, so docile, accomplish what the brute force of hammer and anvil never could? The answer to this question is the heart of Wu Wei and alchemical strategy. The water doesn't attack head-on. It doesn't declare war on the rock. It doesn't try to destroy it in a direct confrontation. The water does something much more intelligent. It flows. When it encounters an obstacle, a rock in its path, it doesn't repeatedly crash into it in an act of mindless resistance. It simply goes around, embraces the shape of the rock, finds the path of least resistance, and continues its inevitable journey toward the ocean. But here's the secret. As it goes around, it caresses. It exerts a gentle, almost imperceptible, but constant pressure. This strategy is the embodiment of the alchemical process. Water is the great universal solvent, the symbol of the first phase of the great work. In this phase, the raw material, which is our hardened ego, our rigid beliefs, our crystallized traumas, needs to be dissolved. Water does not destroy the ego violently. It gently dissolves it in the philosopher's water of consciousness. It separates the subtle from the dense, the pure from the impure. Water's strategy of finding the fissures in the rock is the practical application of the most famous Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. Just as water, on the physical plane, finds geological fault lines and lines of weakness in rock, fluid consciousness, on the mental and emotional plane, learns to find the cracks in any problem. It stops seeing the problem as a solid, impenetrable block and begins to perceive its inconsistencies, its contradictions, the empty spaces in its logic. And it is through these spaces that it works, not to break the problem down, but to dissolve it from within, until what once seemed an insurmountable mountain crumbles into grains of sand. Water teaches us the art of patient dissolution. It shows us that true strength lies not in the ability to break, but in the ability to transform resistance into fluidity. But nature has another lesson, a dramatic jewel that unfolds in every storm. A life or death lesson that reveals the crucial difference between a structure that breaks under pressure and one that uses pressure to strengthen itself even further. Imagine a violent storm brewing on the horizon. The winds howl, the rain falls relentlessly. In the middle of the field, two figures stand out. The first is an ancient and mighty oak tree. Proud of its strength, its thick trunk, and its deep roots, It decides to face the storm. Its mindset is one of total resistance. I am strong. I am unshakable. Nothing can bend me. It plants itself firmly on the ground and refuses to yield an inch to the power of the wind. This is the mindset our culture applauds. Willpower, unyielding determination. The wind, however, cares nothing for the oak's pride. It encounters total resistance and, therefore, applies its full force. The oak's rigidity, which it considered its greatest virtue, becomes its fatal weakness. The wind intensifies against its stubbornness, forcing, pushing, until, with a devastating crack that echoes across the landscape, the massive trunk splits. The great oak, a symbol of strength, lies broken on the ground. Its refusal to adapt was its undoing. It won the battle of pride, but lost the war of survival. Nearby, another figure adopts a completely different strategy. It's a bamboo, seemingly fragile and delicate. When the storm winds arrive, the bamboo doesn't try to resist. It doesn't have the oak's foolish pride. Instead, it dances with the wind. It bends gracefully, its leaves nearly touching the ground. It yields to the power of the storm, but it doesn't break. It is flexible, adaptable, and when the storm finally passes, when the wind calms, the bamboo slowly straightens, intact, perhaps even with its roots stronger from the exercise the bending provided. This is a perfect demonstration of the gender principle, as taught in Hermeticism. The Kabbalion states, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. The oak represents the masculine principle in its unbalanced and rigid aspect, projection, inflexible force, and refusal to receive. Bamboo, on the other hand, embodies perfect balance. It possesses the structure and strength of the masculine. It is straight, growing upward, but employs the wisdom of the feminine principle, receptivity, flexibility, and the ability to yield and, in the end, prevail. The Wu Wei master, the Hermetic initiate, does not abandon his strength or his purpose, his masculine principle. He does not become a directionless leaf in the wind. He keeps his destiny clear, but learns to unite this strength with the receptive wisdom of the feminine. He knows when to project his will and when to receive the flow of the universe. He knows when to be firm as a mountain and when to be flexible as bamboo. He understands that true strength lies not in a single pole, but in the harmonious dance between the two. Understanding the principles of water and bamboo, of rhythm and gender, is the theoretical basis of mastery. But how can we apply this in practice? How can we develop the subtle perception to know when to be bamboo and when to be water amidst the storms of our daily lives? This requires a recalibration of our most fundamental instrument of perception, an internal shift that Thoth, the master of wisdom, described as the act of opening the eye that sees in darkness. We've reached the heart of the mystery. The reason why, despite all your efforts, you feel trapped. The enemy isn't outside. It's not your boss, your partner, or the economy. The enemy is a program running silently inside your own mind. We call it controller mode. It's that incessant voice in your head that needs to plan, manage, force, and manipulate every detail of your life. It stems from the deepest fear, the fear that if you let go of control for even a second, everything will fall apart. It's the voice that keeps you awake at night, replaying conversations and planning the next day. The cruel irony is that this desperate attempt at control is the true source of chaos. By trying to force situations, you generate resistance. By trying to control people, you generate resentment. By trying to plan every step, you blind yourself to the unexpected opportunities life presents. The controlling mode is like trying to hold water with your fists. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. In contrast, there is another state of being, one the sages call the sensitive observer mode. It is not a state of passivity, but of radical curiosity and inner stillness. This is where the title's promise is fulfilled. This is where Thoth's forbidden technique is revealed. The controlling mode is what Hermeticists call profane consciousness, the mind that completely identifies with the ego, the body, and personal history, believing itself to be a separate entity from the rest of the universe. The sensitive observer mode is the first step toward initiatic consciousness. And the technique for conquering all by doing nothing is the deliberate and conscious application of the most powerful of the 7 Hermetic principles, the principle of correspondence. The axiom is famous: as above, so below, as within, so without, but few understand its practical application. Conquering ALL was never about dominating the external world. That's black magic, the will of the ego. True conquest is total mastery over your inner world. Doing nothing never meant physical inaction. It means ceasing all reactive and forced action on the external plane. It means ceasing to be the desperate swimmer fighting the waves of reality. The technique is this: instead of trying to change the external circumstance that bothers you, you retreat to your center, to your inner sanctuary. You stop fighting with the outside and look inside, and then you identify which mental, emotional, and vibrational state within you is corresponding, resonating with that unwanted external reality. If outside there is conflict and fighting, inside you there is a state of resistance and anger. If outside there is scarcity and lack, inside you there is a state of fear and a poverty mentality. Once you've identified the internal pattern, you use your will not to fight the world, but to transmute that inner state. You consciously choose to shift your vibration from fear to trust, from anger to peace, from scarcity to gratitude. You do this internally, on the mental plane, the plane of causes, and then, by the infallible law of correspondence, external reality, the plane of effects, has no choice but to readjust itself to mirror your new inner state. You achieve the result without doing anything to physically force it. You become a mental alchemist. You've been given the key to mental alchemy, the power to shape reality based on your inner state. But how do you know which inner state to transmute? How do you navigate the chaos of everyday life with this new tool? You need a map, a navigation system that translates the complex language of the universe into simple, direct signals. This map exists. It's an internal GPS I call the traffic light system. It allows you to read the energy of any situation and know exactly how to proceed, transforming Hermetic theory into a daily, infallible practice, a guide to your new consciousness. Think of any situation in your life as a road with a traffic light. The first light is the green light. You feel it when things simply flow. A conversation that unfolds effortlessly, an idea that is received with enthusiasm, a door that opens exactly when you need it. This is life giving you a clear signal. The path is clear. Your internal vibration is in harmony, in resonance with the vibration of that situation. At this moment, action is welcome. It's time to accelerate, to enjoy the flow, to act with confidence, because the universe is conspiring in your favor, validating your alignment. Then there's the red light. You know it too well. It's that feeling of pushing against a wall, a conversation that becomes an argument, a negotiation that doesn't move forward, a project that encounters inexplicable obstacles at every step. It's a feeling of friction, of tension, that something is fundamentally wrong. This is the universe telling you to stop. It's not a punishment, it's a warning. The red light is a clear sign of vibrational dissonance. Your energy and the energy of the situation are in direct conflict. Forcing your way through here will only cause an accident, a waste of energy, and more frustration. This system is a practical way to read the emanations of the ALL, as a hermeticist would say. The green light indicates resonance, the red light, dissonance. An experienced alchemist uses this perception to decide which element to apply in their great work. The green light is the time to apply the fire of action, the masculine energy of projection. The red light is the time to use the water of dissolution, patience, and the feminine energy of receptivity. It's time to stop pushing and start observing, to dissolve the internal resistance that is causing the red signal in the external world. Finally, there is the yellow light, the most subtle and the one that requires the greatest mastery. It is the state of transition. The situation is neither fully open nor completely closed. There is uncertainty in the air, a sense that things could go either way. This is a sign of rhythmic fluctuation, as described in the Kabbalion. The poles are in the process of inversion. The energy is shifting. The alchemist here uses neither fire nor water. He enters the distillation phase. He observes with utmost attention, without judgment, waiting for the light to change to green or red, ready to act or retreat at the precise moment. Learning to read this internal GPS is developing the sensitivity of a master. It means stopping, driving your life with your eyes closed, reacting only to collisions, and starting to navigate consciously, anticipating the curves and signs. Reading the map, however, is crucial. But what exactly do you do when life presents you with a solid, insurmountable red light? The first move of a true mental alchemist is not an external action to break the signal, but an internal act of silent power that changes the light itself. When you encounter the red light, resistance, conflict, what is your first reaction? The conditioned mind's impulse is immediate. Fight, argue, force, react. This impulse is the matrix's programming in action, keeping you trapped in the physical plane's cycle of cause and effect. But the mental alchemist, the Wu Wei practitioner, does something radically different. They don't act, they pause. They perform what I call the sage's pause. This is not a moment of hesitation or weakness. It is the most profound act of power a human being can perform. This pause is the deliberate creation of a space. A sacred space between the stimulus the world throws at you and your response. In this space, which can last 3 deep breaths or several days of reflection, magic happens. You break the hypnotic pattern of automatic reactivity. You stop being a pawn on the board of life, driven by the actions of others, and become the player, observing the board before making your move. In this silence, you regain 100% of your power of choice, a power the matrix works tirelessly to make you forget you possess. In the Hermetic tradition, this act has a name. It is the retreat into the inner sanctuary. It is the conscious movement of leaving the noisy plane of effects, the physical world where we are bombarded by circumstances, and entering the silent plane of causes, the mental world where reality is created. Living in automatic reactivity is living like a slave to the plane of effects, always at the mercy of what happens outside. The sage's pause is the act of a master returning to his throne on the causal plane to decide with sovereignty, instead of merely reacting with despair. Thoth, in the Emerald Tablets, teaches, man is a star trapped in a body, until in the end he is freed through his struggle. But this struggle is not the external battle against the world, as we have been led to believe. It is the internal battle against our own compulsive reactivity. It is the struggle not to be swept away by the current of our own conditioned patterns. And the sage's pause is the ultimate weapon to win this battle. It is the shield that protects you from the darts of provocation and the sword that cuts the chains of impulsivity. By practicing this pause, you begin to perceive the mechanics of your own mind. You see anger arising, but it doesn't become anger. You see fear arising, but it doesn't become fear. You become the silent observer, the sky that watches the clouds pass without identifying with them. And from this place of calm power, of unshakable center, you can finally access your deepest wisdom, the intuition that is the voice of your higher self, your direct connection to the universal mind. Once you stand on this throne, in your inner sanctuary, silently observing the chaos of the world without being affected by it, you are finally ready for the next step. You are ready to give the right order. Not a loud, desperate order shouted to the outside world, but a subtle, powerful command issued from the silence of your being. A command that the universe, by law, has no choice but to obey. From the silence of your inner sanctuary, after the sage's pause, righteous action emerges. This is not the reactive, noisy action of the ego. It is not the brute effort of the desperate swimmer. It is something else entirely. It is the perfectly calibrated action, the minimal, precise movement that acts as a leverage point to create maximum impact. It is the wisdom of Archimedes applied to reality. Give me a lever and a fulcrum, and I will move the world. The sage's pause gives you the fulcrum. Righteous action is the lever. Think about it. Instead of engaging in a long, drawn-out argument, righteous action might be asking a single question, so precise and unexpected that it completely disarms your opponent and changes the dynamic of the conversation. Instead of launching a massive project with enormous risk and effort, righteous action might be creating a small prototype, a simple test that validates the idea with minimal energy and gives you the information you need. It's not about the amount of force you apply, but the intelligence with which you apply it. It's the difference between trying to knock down a wall with your fists and simply finding the switch that turns it off. This is the manifestation of the lost word, or the word in action, concept so dear to the esoteric tradition. The power lies not in the physical action itself, but in the intention and vibration that precede and permeate it. Righteous action is, in fact, the endpoint of an energetic circuit you have already completed on the mental plane. It is the physical Amen to a mental prayer you performed during the sage's pause. It is the seal that materializes on the plane of effects, a cause that has already been firmly established on the mental plane. The universe, being mental in its essence, does not respond primarily to your physical action. It responds to the mental cause that gave rise to that action. This is why the action can be minimal, almost invisible to others. It is not, by itself, creating the effect. It is serving as an anchor, a channel, a precipitation point for an effect that has already been shaped and defined in the realm of the mind, in your inner sanctuary. This is why a master can achieve with a gesture what an amateur cannot achieve with 1,000 efforts. The power was not in the gesture, but in the consciousness behind it. Practicing righteous action teaches you to become a cosmic strategist. You stop wasting your life force on unnecessary battles and start looking for leverage in every situation. You constantly ask yourself, what is the smallest move I can make right now from this state of clarity that will generate the greatest wave of positive change? This question alone shifts your perspective from brute force to efficient elegance. You become a master of timing, precision, and energy conservation, the true signs of true power. But giving the command, even if it's the perfect command, is only the beginning of the manifestation process. The next step is perhaps the most counterintuitive and treacherous for the Western mind, conditioned to control and verify. It's the moment when most alchemists' apprentices fail, using their own anxiety to undo the magic they've just created with such care and precision. You found your center, performed the righteous action, given the command on the mental plane, and anchored it on the physical plane. The circuit is complete. The seed has been planted. What now? What does the controlling mind, the ego, want to do immediately? It wants to check. It wants to dig the earth to see if the seed is germinating. It wants to control the rain, the sun, the temperature. It becomes the anxious gardener, and with its anxiety and its need for control, it ends up killing the seed it just planted. This is the most common and most fatal mistake. The art of letting go is the opposite. It's becoming the wise gardener. After preparing the soil, choosing the best seed, and planting it at the right time, the gardener trusts the process. He doesn't abandon the garden. He continues watering, protecting, and tending, but he doesn't interfere with the mystery of growth. He knows that germination happens in the dark, away from his controlling eyes. Letting go isn't giving up or being indifferent to the outcome. It's an active and intelligent trust in the process you yourself initiated. It's the release of obsessive attachment to how and when the result will manifest. This is the alchemical principle of coagulation. After solutio, the dissolution of the old, comes coagula, the solidification of the new. But coagulation, manifestation, cannot be forced. It requires an environment of trust and patience to form. Anxiety, doubt, worry, the need to constantly check, are like energetic acids you pour over your creation. They dissolve the manifestation before it has a chance to solidify on the physical plane. The art of letting go is the conscious act of removing these acids and allowing your creation to form in peace. This is what Hermeticists call faith. But it's not blind faith or empty hope. It's faith based on knowledge. It's the absolute confidence that universal principles, such as mentalism and correspondence, are laws as infallible as the law of gravity. You don't throw a stone in the air and worry about whether it will fall. You know it will. Likewise, once you've established a clear and powerful cause on the mental plane, you trust that the corresponding effect will manifest on the physical plane. It's the law. By practicing the art of letting go, you release a tremendous amount of mental and emotional energy that was previously trapped in the vicious cycle of worry and anxiety. This energy, now free, can be reinvested in being present, in perceiving new opportunities, in enjoying the process. You stop living in the future, waiting for a result, and return to living in the now, where life truly happens. You surrender your creation to the great womb of the universe, trusting that it knows exactly how to gestate and give birth to your intention at the perfect moment. Mastering the sage's pause, righteous action, and the art of letting go is the path to mastery, the 3 pillars of mental alchemy. But this path is not a flowery field. It is guarded by sentinels, by powerful illusions created by your own mind to test you and keep you trapped in the old pattern. Now, I will reveal the 3 guardians of illusion, the fatal errors that can trap you forever in the labyrinth of your own mind. The first guardian, the first trap your ego will place in your path, is the most seductive of all: false passivity. It's the distortion we already mentioned, but now, with your new knowledge, it becomes even more dangerous. You learn about flow, about not forcing, and your ego, a master of self-deception, uses this as the perfect excuse for inertia. It whispers to you, don't have that difficult conversation, that would be forcing. Just flow. Don't start that challenging project. Wait for the perfect moment. This is not the patience of the wise. It is the demon of acedia, spiritual laziness disguised as Eastern wisdom. True non-action is a state of high alert. False passivity is a state of torpor and avoidance. The second guardian is the direct opposite, but equally destructive: the tyranny of impatience. You experience the power of flow once or twice, feel the magic happen, and now you want everything in your life to work that way, immediately. Your ego then commits the ultimate irony. It tries to force the flow. It tries to create the conditions for no force by using force. It's like trying to force yourself to relax or strive for spontaneity. The very act destroys what you're trying to create. You begin to manipulate conversations, pressure people, help the universe, all in the name of creating flow. This is the demon of greed, the ego's desire to harvest the fruit before it ripens, violating the sacred principle of rhythm. The third and most subtle guardian is analysis paralysis. This is the intellectual mind's favorite trap. You learn the principles, the techniques, and then start overthinking them. Am I in flow now? Was what I did a righteous action? Am I letting go enough? You become a commentator on your own life rather than a participant. Practice, which should be intuitive and fluid, becomes a mental checklist. This is the demon of doubt. It is the lower mind's attempt, the logical and linear mind, to understand and control what can only be grasped by intuition, by the higher mind. By trying to analyze the flow, by definition, you step out of it. These 3 fatal errors, laziness, greed, and doubt, are the demons of the threshold that every initiate encounters on their journey. They are not external enemies, but manifestations of the resistance of one's own ego, which fears losing control. Recognizing them is the first step to overcoming them. Protection against them lies in the practitioner's humility, the awareness that this is an art that is refined throughout life. Each mistake is not a failure, but a valuable lesson that teaches you to distinguish true gold from the ego's imitations. Avoiding these demons is essential for alchemy to work. And now that you know the path, the technique, and the guardians who protect you, it's time for final validation. It's time to bring this ancient wisdom into the 21st century. What the most advanced science, with its precision instruments, has discovered about what happens in the brain of a mental alchemist at work is irrefutable proof that what we're talking about isn't philosophy or belief. It's physics. For millennia, these teachings were transmitted as esoteric wisdom, accessible only to initiates. It seemed mystical, separate from the material world. But today, cutting-edge science, with tools like functional magnetic resonance imaging, is unwittingly opening the temple doors and revealing the neurological mechanisms behind the magic. What modern psychologists call flow state, that state of peak performance where time seems to disappear and action becomes effortless, is the experience that Taoists call Wu Wei and that Hermeticists know as alignment with the ALL. What neuroscientists have discovered is absolutely shocking and validates every step of our journey. During a state of flow, a phenomenon called transient hyperfrontality occurs. It's a complicated name for something simple: activity in the frontal part of your brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, dramatically decreases. And what does this part of the brain do? It's the seat of your ego. It's where your critical inner voice, your obsessive planner, your sense of separate self, and your perception of time reside. In other words, science is proving that to enter a state of maximum power, your brain literally needs to turn off the ego's voice. This is the physical evidence of mental transmutation. The sage's pause, meditation, and the practice of presence are trainings to consciously decrease the activity of this ego neural network. When you calm this part of the brain, you free up immense cognitive resources. The energy that was previously spent on self-criticism, doubt, and worry is redirected to other areas of the brain, responsible for creativity, intuition, and skillful action. You don't become smarter. You simply remove the interference that was preventing you from accessing your deeper intelligence. The flow state is the neurological signature of an individual who has achieved, even temporarily, alignment between their personal mind and the universal mind. It is the brain quieting itself so that the higher mind, or what Thoth would call the star soul consciousness, can operate without the static and noise of the ego. Science is not discovering something new. It is, with its own methods, merely mapping the sacred territory that initiates and masters have traversed for millennia. It is giving us physical proof that mental alchemy is not a metaphor. It is a real neurological process. This knowledge has profound implications. It means you're not dealing with concepts that require blind faith. You're working with the principles of how your own nervous system works. The benefits of Wu Wei, such as increased efficiency, reduced stress, improved decision-making, and more harmonious relationships, are not vague, spiritual promises. They are the predictable, scientifically observable results of optimizing the way your brain operates, of learning to silence the noise so you can hear the music. Science proves how the mechanism works at a biological level, but the real proof of the power of this consciousness isn't in a laboratory. It's in history. Who were the people who used this state, consciously or unconsciously, to accomplish seemingly impossible feats? Legends, from the master builders of the pyramids to modern visionaries, reveal the true scope of this power when applied to shape reality. The power of flow, of Wu Wei, is not an abstract theory. It is a pattern that repeats itself tirelessly throughout history, in moments of greatest human genius and mastery. The oldest and perhaps purest story comes from China, that of Butcher Ting. He was famous for deboning a beef carcass with the fluidity of a dance, using the same knife for 19 years without ever needing to sharpen it. When the prince asked him his secret, Ting replied, "What I love is the Tao, which goes beyond skill. I do not see with my eyes, but perceive with my spirit. I follow the natural structure, cut through the great gaps, guide the knife through the openings." Butcher Ting was not just a skilled butcher. He was an initiate who applied the principle of correspondence to his art. He did not see the dense matter of the carcass. He saw its energetic matrix, the empty spaces, the lines of least resistance. He saw as above and therefore operated effortlessly below. This same wisdom was applied by the great masters of the past. The architects of the great cathedrals and pyramids, capable of engineering feats that defy our modern understanding, were not merely brilliant technicians. They were hermeticists who operated from this state of alignment, channeling knowledge from the mental plane to the physical. This golden thread spans the centuries and reaches our days. When Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in history, says that our favorite waiting period is forever, and that he only acts when the opportunity is obvious and easy, he is describing, in financial terms, the patience of the wise and just action. When Michael Jordan, in his prime, said that the game just slows down and he saw everything before it happened, he was describing the insight that comes when the ego mind shuts down and intuition takes over. When Bruce Lee, a profound scholar of philosophy, advised his students to be like water, he wasn't using a poetic metaphor. He was teaching the direct application of Wu Wei to combat, adapt, flow, not resist, and use the opponent's strength against them. Jazz musicians who enter states of pure improvisation, elite surgeons whose hands seem to know what to do without conscious thought, programmers who code for hours in a state of total immersion. All of them, consciously or unconsciously, are accessing the same state. They are accidental initiates. They stumbled upon the door of flow through extreme dedication to their art. They prove that this state is not a privilege of monks or mystics, but an innate potential within every human being. The difference is that they access this power sporadically and intuitively. The journey we are on here is about learning to access this state deliberately, consciously, and consistently. It's about transforming a happy accident into a mastered skill. All these legends, from an ancient Chinese butcher to modern billionaires, all the cutting-edge neuroscience, all the immortal wisdom of Thoth and the Hermetic masters, point to a single, final, and shocking truth. A truth about who you really are. A truth that, once truly understood and accepted in every cell of your being, makes struggle, effort, and resistance not only unnecessary, but literally impossible. We have reached the end of the intellectual journey and the beginning of true fulfillment. All the pain, all the struggle, all the effort you have experienced in your life was based on a single, fundamental illusion, a mistaken identity. You always believed yourself to be the rock, a solid, separate entity struggling to resist the current of life. You prided yourself on your strength, on your ability to endure, to resist. But this identity was a lie. The shocking truth, the final revelation, is this: you are not the rock. You never were. You are the river. This is not a metaphor. It is the most accurate description of reality, according to perennial wisdom. The sense of being a separate self, an ego encapsulated in a body, is the primary illusion created by the mind. The Hermetic truth, the truth of all great traditions, is that there is no separation. You are an individualized expression of the ALL, a single wave in the infinite ocean of universal consciousness. You are a cell in the body of God, a spark of the divine mind. You and the universe are not two things, they are one. Think about how absurd it is to fight the flow of life when you understand this. It's a wave fighting the ocean. It's a cell in your body declaring war on its own body. It's insanity. The fight is only possible as long as you believe in the illusion of separation. The moment you remember, the moment you feel the truth that you are the flow, the fight instantly ceases. How can you fight yourself? How can you resist your own nature? The forbidden technique of Thoth, mental alchemy, Wu Wei, all boils down to this final act of surrender and remembrance. Surrendering not to defeat, but to your true identity. Remembering that you are the river. When you operate from this awareness, the universe stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that flows through you. Opportunities are not things you need to chase. They are currents you learn to feel and follow. Obstacles are not enemies to be destroyed. They are merely rocks that your own flow gracefully circumvents. By remembering that you are the river, you no longer need to achieve anything. For you discover that you are already a part of everything. You don't need to do anything to force results. For you trust that your own flow is carrying you inevitably to the ocean, to your highest destiny. The ultimate power is not the power to control the river. It is the power to become the river, and this power has always been there, patiently waiting for you to stop struggling and simply remember who you truly are. Now that you've seen the truth, now that the illusion has been exposed, the mind's journey ends and the soul's journey begins. Knowledge without practice is just an unused map. Therefore, the next step is not to learn more, but to live it. The 7-day flow challenge is your personal laboratory. Choose an area of your life where you feel like the rock and, for 7 days, practice being the river. Use the sage's pause, seek righteous action, practice the art of letting go, and watch reality bend, not to your strength, but to your fluidity. If you've made it this far, leave the phrase, "I choose to flow," not force, in the comments. I want to see who truly understands the essence of this technique. And if you'd like to help the channel more directly, you can contribute in the first pinned comment and help me spread even more content like this. This is very important to me and to the growth of the channel, and any help you can give makes all the difference. But just by making it to the end of the video, it helps me a lot. You can also share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And before you leave, I've put together a special video for you. Don't leave yet. Click on the video that's currently playing on your screen, and we'll see you there.